Thank you, Chair, intervening in these important questions with some other important questions. So look, I'm wanting to ask the department about the implementation of the government guidelines on the recognition of sex and gender, and which were guidelines that were to be implemented by July 2016, so support for transgender, gender diverse, intersex people, and enable people to change their gender and to have indeterminate gender on forms and databases. So look, I wanted to know how the department has gone with implementing these guidelines.
Certainly, Senator, we have implemented those guidelines, and I'll ask Mr Swager to take you through those.
Thank you, Secretary. Thank you, Senator. Michael Schwager, Chief Operating Officer of the Department. The Department has, in fact, implemented the guidelines. It is possible now to identify Gender X through our HR information management system, both the Orion and PageUp systems that we use as part of our HR IMS. In line with the guidance from the Attorney General's Department. We did that prior to the July 2016 deadline. It's certainly something that can be done for anyone outward-facing who's applying into the department. Existing employees in the department were advised that Gender X is available to be nominated, and they can change their previous statements to Gender X, and we continue to advise all staff that that is an option that they can take up.
And so in terms of a bit more detail on sort of the outward facing and sort of your interactions with the public, so how is, so all of your forms and databases are compliant?
So for the HR, if you're applying for a position in the department and you're coming through our PageUp system, whether you're a contractor or whether you're a potential employee applying for a job or a successful applicant for that job applying to come into the department and registering with the department for all of our HR purposes, yes, Gender X is an option for people to take.
Are there any other interactions with the public other than sort of employee, HR interactions that the department has?
That would be the primary one that allows for gender identification.
Yes, but how about other interactions that where you sounds like you may not be compliant?
So we have a broad inclusion strategy that covers all of our interactions across the board to ensure that everything we do is gender inclusive.
I'm thinking of other engagement processes with the community or other reasons why the community or the public would engage with the department. Can you tell me about what some of those may be?
Senator Rice, Elizabeth Kelly, Deputy Secretary. There are other occasions where we engage, obviously, in the process of receiving applications for grants and other programs that we administer. My understanding is that it would be unusual for us to collect gender details as part of those processes, but we will have to take it on notice and come back to you with when we've done a final check of all of those other processes in which we engage with the public. And they do largely relate to grant applications and applications for programs.
Okay. Yes. Okay. If you could take that on notice, then that would be
Yes.
good.
Sorry, Senator,
yes.
if I could just add, the department also has inclusive language guidelines and supporting gender affirmation guidelines that have been made available, particularly through our Pride network in the department, and that's been out for comment with our Pride. So we're trying to actually get our Pride network to help us in the development of those language inclusive guidelines. Those guidelines will then be used across the department, and that will help in all of the language that we use, both externally facing and internally facing.
And can you talk me through what training and that takes place? Any information to staff to be supporting respectful relationships?
So we have a range of learning activities. We have e-learning modules that are available to all staff on their desktop, as well as face-to-face learning activities that's available to all staff across the department to cover awareness of LGBTI plus issues, including transgender and intersex interactions.
Do you know what the take-up of those training modules has been?
Would have to take that on notice specifically, okay. Senator.
And is there any mandatory training that is required to be undertaken?
Senator Nathan Hannigan, Acting General Manager of People and Planning. No.
Okay, thank you. Then, in terms of other agencies that fall within the portfolio, do you know whether they are also compliant or how they have gone with meeting the guidelines?
Certainly, Senator. On receipt of advice from the Attorney General's Department, portfolio agencies were advised of the guidance. As the portfolio agencies manage their own HR functions, each of those agencies would need to advise what actions they've implemented. But certainly in terms of corporate policy, we advise, and we tend to be a source of information for the portfolio agencies.
So do you do any tracking as to whether they are compliant?
No.
No. Could you take on notice as to whether the agencies that fall within the portfolio are compliant and what actions they have taken to implement the guidelines?
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks very much.